Coming in at number 10, we've got an honorable mention with DC Comics' The Tarantula. Now, this character only gets to be an honorable mention on this list because he actually predates Spider-Man, first appearing in 1941, which technically could be argued makes Spider-Man a tarantula ripoff, especially considering the fact he also had a web shooter, although in this case, looking like a literal pistol. With Spider-Man going on to become the much more popular character, later depictions of the tarantula would draw inspiration from the famous wall crawler. However, while Spider-Man may share some similarities with the initial Golden Age version of the character, the tarantula these days is best known as a violent female assassin, also known as Catalina Flores, most frequently coming into conflict with Nightwing. Nevertheless, being one of the first spider-themed heroes definitely earns the original tarantula a spot on this list. Coming in at number 9, we've got another honorable mention from Spider-Man's own life. It's Ben Reilly, aka the Scarlet Spider, aka the infamous clone of Peter Parker. Originally created when the supervillain the Jackal cloned both Gwen Stacy and Spider-Man, this clone would go on to adopt its own unique name of Ben and the moniker of the Scarlet Spider, with a slightly unique costume that added a hoodie to the traditional Spider-Man outfit. While initially clashing with the original Spider-Man, the Scarlet Spider would go on to become a powerful ally during the 90s, even replacing the actual Peter Parker for a while as the only Spider-Man, with his own updated costume as well. So, does he still count as a ripoff after all of that? We'll let the comments section figure that one out. Coming in at number 8, we have DC Comics' most obvious Spider-Man reference, the hero of Earth 8 known simply as Bug. Hailing from a universe that's deliberately designed to be filled with references to the rival Marvel universe, Bug is apparently such a famous hero that he has his own movie series with the tagline, "The Hero You Hate to Love." Complete with a Gwen Stacy-esque girlfriend named Kirsten and a pumpkin-themed villain named Halloween, Bug couldn't be a more obvious Spider-Man reference if he tried. Coming in at number 7, no list of weird rip-off characters would be complete without some representation from the Sonic the Hedgehog universe, with Stealth the Hedgehog. That's right, the Archie Comics Sonic series has a multiverse and continuity almost as complex as some of the big superhero publishers. And in one of the alternate Sonic realities of this Archie Comics multiverse, Sonic for some reason had to wear a superhero costume while saving all of his animal friends. With the suit obviously being inspired by Spider-Man's own costume and Sonic already having the habit of running up walls, it isn't hard to see that Stealth the Hedgehog is just a little bit Spidey inspired. Still not sure why a hedgehog needs a secret identity though. Coming in at number 6, we have Derek James, aka the DC superhero Sideways. Now, I could list all of the similarities that Spider-Man and Sideways have as solo teenage superheroes, but honestly, just look at this guy's mask. There's no way he's not directly inspired by Spidey. Luckily, however, Sideways does have enough of a unique power set to stand out, despite his very similar costume. He's capable of creating unique rifts in space-time that allows him to both teleport within his own dimension or travel to different dimensions entirely, a power that landed him in hot water the one time he accidentally teleported to the dark multiverse. Nevertheless, Sideways is an up-and-coming hero in training, still learning how to properly use his abilities, but maybe someday he can continue and become an icon like Spider-Man. Coming in at number 5, we've got another cartoon reference with Danny Phantom. Replace the word spider with ghost, and you can basically copy and paste most of Spider-Man's defining features into the character of Danny Phantom. As a young teenage boy named Danny Fenton that was accidentally granted ghost-themed superpowers, he has to fight as a disguised superhero against an army of evil ghosts, all while preventing his family from finding out that he's spending his spare time as a superhero. Luckily, Danny Phantom was a pretty well-written show and managed to set itself apart with its unique ghost-themed villains, and letting Danny Phantom stand out as one of Nickelodeon's best superheroes. Coming in at number 4, we have the DC villain Black Spider. At first glance, Black Spider might seem like a bit of a stretch compared to others on this list. Sure, his costume is a bit similar, but in the comics, Black Spider's backstory is completely different, usually revolving around him being a heavily armed assassin and merely being as deadly as a spider. However, in the Young Justice animated series, Black Spider was taken in a new direction to be more obviously a villainous interpretation of Spider-Man, complete with web-related weaponry, and even being voiced by Josh Keaton, the voice of Peter Parker from the fan-favorite Spectacular Spider-Man TV show. Pretty on the nose for DC to make a former Spider-Man a bad guy, don't you think? Coming in at number 3, we have Jamie Reyes, aka the Blue Beetle. While his adventures with Young Justice in the comics have led to the Blue Beetle being much more of a standalone hero than some of the other entries on this list, you have to admit there's a decent amount of obviously inspired crossover between the two characters. Both are primarily known for being younger heroes, both are known for being sarcastic and relatable, both have obvious bug themes, and both have had extended adventures with an alien suit covering their body, even if Jamie's situation is a bit more permanent. All of this is to say that the Blue Beetle shows how a hero inspired by Spider-Man can grow into their own unique individual. Coming in at number 2, we have Mark Grayson, aka Invincible. The son of Omni-Man, the most powerful superhero in the Image Comics universe, and a clear stand-in for Superman, Mark was raised for much of his life fully aware that he was half human and half Viltrumite, but believing his father to be an icon of justice and peace for the world. Unfortunately for Mark, the Viltrumite Empire is actually dead set on conquering the universe, with Omni-Man actually supposed to be preparing the Earth for invasion by Viltrumite forces. Horrified at everything his father stands for, Mark wound up embracing his role as Invincible even more, using his Viltrumite strength to become one of the strongest heroes in his universe and becoming essentially an even more powerful version of Spider-Man. A teenager just trying to find a balance of living his life and protecting the people he cares about against villains that are incredibly personally connected to him. And if that doesn't sound like Spider-Man, I don't know what does. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have Terry McGinnis, aka Batman Beyond. Now, Terry might be one of my favorite characters to ever wear the mantle of Batman, but he definitely owes a lot of inspiration to Marvel's very own Wallcrawler. The Batman Beyond series came out after the success of the 90s Spider-Man animated series, which saw Spider-Man frequently fighting high-tech villains and laser weapons, alongside the comic book debut of Spider-Man 2099, a Spider-Man of the future. These futuristic settings, alongside turning Batman into a sarcastic teenage wisecracker, would become iconic in the Batman Beyond series and show how the 90s just might have been one of the greatest eras for both Batman and Spider-Man. Coming in at number 10, we've got a bit of an honorable mention with an in-universe example from the MCU with Night Monkey. During the events of Spider-Man Far From Home, Peter Parker finds himself called into duty by Nick Fury while on vacation for a class trip to Europe. Since it would be a bit too obvious if both Spider-Man and Peter Parker conveniently were in Europe at the same time, Peter chose to use a black stealth suit for his mission against Mysterio's elementals. And when Betty Brant pointed out this new masked hero swinging around similarities to Spider-Man, Peter's friend Ned came up with the quick excuse of a European ripoff of Spider-Man known as Night Monkey. This may only count as an honorable mention, but still, when's our Night Monkey Disney Plus show, eh, Marvel? Coming in at number 9, we have the Flea from the independent comic series PS 238, dealing with the misadventures happening at an elementary school for superpowered children. Born under the name of Alejandro Torres to two insect-themed superheroes that fell in love and started a family, the Flea's similarities to Spider-Man are numerous, from his full-body costume, to his love of acrobatics, to his quippy sense of humor with both allies and enemies. The main distinguishing feature of this hero from the original Spidey is that the Flea actually can control bugs, a power that so far, Spider-Man has only jokingly wished he could use. Coming in at number 8, we have DC Comics' Redback Spider. Not much is known about this character other than the very obvious question raised by their appearance. What if Spider-Man had a slightly scarier costume and liked to stab people? During an event that saw Timothy Drake teaming up with the supernatural superhero team Shadow Pact, the heroes found themselves in a desolate city surrounded by over 50 supervillains eager to take down the Boy Wonder. One of these super assassins was named the Redback Spider, and while they technically predate Miles Morales' black and red color scheme by a few years, their costume and fighting style are still super obviously influenced by Peter Parker, and brought an answer to the question of what would happen if Spider-Man and Robin ever fought. Just maybe don't tell Batman about this one. Coming in at number 7, we have Rowan Atkinson's Spider-Plant Man. Hailing from a short film of the same name that was filmed for the British charity Comic Relief in 2005, Spider-Plant Man is about a mild-mannered British photographer named Peter Piper who is bitten by, fittingly enough, a radioactive spider plant with teeth, giving him the ability to climb up walls and shoot long plants from his wrists whenever he extends his arms. With a girlfriend named Jane Mary and multiple references to parodies of Spider-Man villains, this project was obviously poking fun at the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films to earn money for charity, and is a pretty amusing piece of comic book parody history, especially considering the main villain at the end winds up being a very British Batman. And if that's not worth looking up on YouTube, I don't know what is. Coming in at number 6, we have the Crawler from the My Hero Academia spin-off manga known as Vigilantes. As a global franchise that's literally all about superheroes learning how to be superheroes, My Hero Academia obviously has a lot of characters that we could compare to the iconic teenage depiction of Spider-Man. However, the closest character to being a Spider-Man ripoff would have to be the Crawler from the My Hero Academia spin-off, whose powers give him similar abilities to a water spider or skimmer, allowing him to travel rapidly across any surface and also allowing him to stick to objects and walls whenever he pleases, just like a bug. Combine this with his sense of humor and an endless string of bad luck, and the Crawler definitely begins to show some similarities to a certain Mr. Peter Parker. Coming in at number 5, we have the spider-themed Kamen Rider Demons from the recent television series in the classic Japanese franchise Kamen Rider Revice. Similar to the Super Sentai franchise that's adapted for American audiences into the Power Rangers series, the Kamen Rider franchise has always been about colorful masked superheroes riding futuristic motorcycles and saving the day from masked villains, aka these guys are basically superheroes. And while the show has always had a motif of using the animal icons of spiders, cobras, and bats, the character of Kamen Rider Demons has a spider costume that is super obviously inspired by the famous wall crawler, complete with webbing and a red and blue color scheme that even involves multiple spider eyes. Needless to say that apparently being a spider-themed superhero has gone international. Coming in at number 4, we have Greg Arkin from the classic Superman prequel series, Smallville. On a show dealing with the weekly adventures of Clark Kent as he struggled to balance his life throughout high school, many of the enemies that a young Superman would face got their powers from the same kryptonite meteor shower that brought Clark to Earth in the first place, with many Smallville citizens gaining unique abilities due to the kryptonite radiation. One of the most disturbing villains from early in the show's run was Gregory Arkin, a classmate of Clark's who was obsessed with bugs and gained powers once he was bitten by some of his pets after they were exposed to radiation. All of Greg's resulting powers were incredibly similar to Spider-Man's, gaining super speed, super strength, and the ability to stick to any surface and climb walls, an ability that unfortunately Greg used to kidnap his longtime crush, Lana Lang, even if he'd eventually be redeemed by the final season of the show. Yay for redemption arcs for creepy bug-themed villains? Coming in at number 3, we have the Dragonfly from the critically panned 2008 parody known as Superhero Movie. A film primarily attempting to make fun of the X-Men and Spider-Man movies of the early 2000s, the Dragonfly is literally just Tobey Maguire's version of Peter Parker, but played by Drake Bell and making some of the worst sex jokes ever committed to film. Where Peter Parker is an awkward kid who gains spider powers, Rick Riker winds up gaining all the powers of a dragonfly, which mainly just seems to mean super strength and the ability to grow wings on his back. This movie is definitely not one I recommend, but it's still super interesting to look back when an entire movie could be funded just to try and make fun of Spider-Man. Coming in at number 2, we have ARACHNE from the British comic series The 10 Seconders. In a world where alien superheroes turned against planet Earth after serving them for years and now intend to conquer the entire world, a small resistance movement forms in London to take on these superpowered enemies, or gods as they're referred to in this universe. The situation is bleak as the name 10 Seconders refers to how long a normal human being can expect to survive when confronting a superpowered being in this world, and one of the most terrifying gods in this universe, filled with references to both DC and Marvel, is ARACHNE, the villain based on Spider-Man. Making reference to his neighborhood being really not that friendly, ARACHNE is a horrifying human-spider hybrid featuring multiple arms and bug-like stingers that he effortlessly uses to cut down his prey. This entire series is filled with heroes gone bad, but ARACHNE is a Spider-Man reference that leans a bit too much on the spider aspect. And finally, coming in at our top spot, we have the infamous ARACHNAMAN. Now, we might all know that Spider-Man's origin story usually involves him trying to use his powers to earn some money in a wrestling ring. But did you know there was almost a real spider power themed professional wrestler? Well, as real as professional wrestling can get. Portrayed by the wrestler Brad Armstrong for the WCW in 1991, ARACHNAMAN was a yellow and purple fighter in spandex that was literally just a color-swapped Spider-Man, with even his low crouching mannerisms and agile fighting style seemingly based on the character. It was so obvious, in fact, that Marvel Comics actually threatened the WCW with legal action if they continued to rip them off so heavily, and thus the character of ARACHNAMAN was retired incredibly quickly, with only a few YouTube videos remaining of the few matches he actually got to fight. And for being the only character that actually managed to incur the wrath of Marvel's lawyers, I think ARACHNAMAN deserves the top spot on this list.